All right, we are live. Welcome, everyone. My name is Jordan Bain. This podcast is called Unveiling. We have a very special guest tonight. His name is Ipsissimus Dave Lanyon, and he is someone who I've known since 2010 when I first went to Healers Academy, and he greeted me at the first day of class, and I was like, wow, I need to learn something here from this man. So it's such an honor to have you on, Ipsissimus Dave. I'll say a few words about him. Ipsissimus Dave, he has been the driving force behind the Modern Mystery School's explosive growth in the Western world since he joined the lineage in 2004. Under his guidance and efforts, our school has expanded from 12 countries to 55. Ipsissimus Dave has really dedicated his life to serving the world by teaching, healing, and helping people from all walks of life to know thyself. He is an expert at identifying what is blocking a person and navigating them to higher frequencies and deeper understandings. I can totally testify to that myself. So thank you for joining us, Ipsissimus Dave.
Thanks for having me. This is something I absolutely despise doing, and I appreciate you inviting me to do it.
I had to corral Ipsissimus Dave for 3 months to get him on this call. So you are all welcome. And he gets to share his wisdom here for the next 45 minutes. So we've got lots of love in the comments feed here. So I just want to start off right away. Our podcast tonight is about how to be a warrior and what it means to be a warrior. So let's start off there, Ipsissimus Dave. What is a warrior and what does it mean to be a warrior?
All right. Okay, so first thing, when it comes to being a warrior, there's a lot of misunderstanding in the world today because, you look at the root word war. So warrior, one who perpetrates war. And so the thought is, a warrior is a person who wants war, who goes out and fights and causes hardship on others, tries to dominate, control, overwhelm, take, things of this nature. Mm-hmm. And in the traditions of King Solomon, that is so not what a warrior means. Mm-hmm. And it's really, a warrior is about fighting for something better. But what is it that you're fighting? That is the real question. And in this world today, we have lost any sort of concept of what we're supposed to be fighting for. Instead of fighting for a better world, we're actually fighting each other more and more and perpetrating negativity. The first battle a warrior must fight to end the war is within the self. Mm-hmm. And until you fight that fight within yourself and you put down all of those little things inside of you that tell you that doing a negative thing or doing something that will result in a negative thing for yourself or for another, until you win that war, you'll never be at peace. When a warrior wins the war, they have internal peace. And then they can go and help others learn how to fight for themselves. Mm-hmm. So in the traditions of King Solomon, it is only under the most dire circumstances that we would go to war for others to impose such a thing as will. Now, if something were really bad, then yes, we would do what we had to do. But our training tells us to teach others to learn how to deal with their own negativity first. When you do that, you win the war and you get internal peace. So you have to think about what's all the negative things that you're up against every day? Mm-hmm. What are those thoughts? For example, as Jordan, you and I were talking earlier, and I was like, well, where do you want me to go with this in terms of, you want this to be like really deep, hermetic sort of stuff that, or do you want to bring it more contemporary? And you kind of threw it back at me. And I said, let's keep it in more terms of what's the world like today? What can you turn on the TV or look out your window and see? And the people on the street, what's going on today in terms of being a warrior. Mm-hmm. And we're having a great many wars today on the planet. And so few actually involve, weapons. It's culture wars, it's belief wars, it's opinion wars. And all of it is perpetrating more hate. So no matter what you do, folks, if you don't like a hateful world, you can't stand in hate to try and stop hate. It creates hate. And so a warrior in our traditions is one who is wise enough not to go to that place. In fact, one of the sort of rules or guidelines to being a warrior is if you can't make something better, stay out of it. In other words, does your opinion improve the situation? Does your actions improve the situation? Does anything you're doing make it better? No, then get out of it. You shouldn't be involved, because what you are saying is that the very best I could do is neutrality. Most likely not an outcome that's going to happen. Most likely you're going to cause more negativity in some way, shape, or form.
And yet everyone's jumping in on everything these days.
Oh, definitely.
Adding their opinion to that.
Yeah, I mean, in general, guys, just, in general, activism is not a positive thing. So, and I know that's going to push some people's buttons, and they're going to go, "What? You don't understand? How dare you?" But I'm telling you, the activism of today is perpetrated on hatred. And so it's carrying the torches and pitchforks to burn the monsters down. Well, guys, I mean, is that love? Is that kindness? Is that respect? Is that understanding? Is that communication? Is that diplomacy? Is that growth? You don't save the village by selling out the essence of the good in the village. What's left is nothing. It's destruction. And so we've taken this concept of I got to stand up and make the world a better place, and we've turned it into, based on hatred, I got to stand up and make the world a better place. And that's a bad place to go.
That's really tough. What would you say are some of the biggest challenges that we as humanity are facing on the planet right now, from your perspective as one of the lineage holders in the Modern Mystery School?
Well, the greatest challenge, and it has been here since the beginning of time, is to know thyself. And so many great teachers have spoken of this. To know thyself is the only pursuit in life. And if you don't know yourself, you really have nothing. You're going to build your life based on an illusion, or worse yet, you're going to build your life based on ego. And ego is whimsical. It's sand. It slips. It slides. It disappears. And you don't have anything left. So the biggest battle we have is to know thyself. And anything that impedes knowing thyself is something that you're going to have to be a warrior against. And generally, that means you. That means yourself is your worst enemy. So you've got to learn to turn that around and become your best friend and become your greatest support, and start doing things, for yourself. What has really happened today that is, like in Star Wars today, there's a disturbance in the Force. That disturbance in the Force today is that the things that we are meant to look at and improve, we have taken in and said, I'm perfect just the way I am. So, and that is such kindergarten school teaching that you teach to, people who are 6 years old, and you say, you're perfect just the way you are. But when you grow up as an adult, you should know clearly you are not perfect the way you are. There's only one perfection in existence, and that is when one is attempting to continue to perfect, then they are perfect. But when you have arrived at perfection, when you have said, I am therefore, which is false, you can't arrive at it, I am therefore perfect just the way I am, there is nothing left to improve on this aspect of myself or subject or situation, then you have instantly failed. So we have taken the things that we should be perfecting and we've put them in a box of they're perfect the way they are. And, one of the things that I see today, and it's always the same. It's always the good concept offered to the people. Good concept, good idea, something that most people will get behind and say, that's good. Racism is bad. Well, who thinks racism is good? War is bad. Absolutely. Starvation, not good. We shouldn't have any starving people on the planet. But we've taken so many things and started with a very good premise. This shouldn't be. And then we've twisted it to actually produce more of the very thing we're trying to fight against. And we've twisted it to set aside the things that we should be stopping and looking in the mirror. It was Michael Jackson, and people have opinions about Michael Jackson. I don't care, to be honest, what your opinion is. What matters to me is he said something particular. Who's looking at the man in the mirror? And, that is ultimately the question. When's the last time you've done a mirror check and said, like, who the hell am I to tell someone else how to live their life or how to do things right? Where am I so perfect? Where am I so well?
Mm-hmm.
And if you were so well, then maybe you wouldn't tell people that so much, right? You would maybe be a little more understanding that it is an imperfect world. So we've taken, for example, one of the things that really gets me is the body positivity movement in the world today, which is good. You should love yourself. Of course, everybody knows that. That's 101 stuff again.
Right.
But when you have a food addiction or, let's set aside, I know. Let's put aside the story. It's hormonal. Oh my God. Everyone in the world has a hormonal problem that's overweight. That's the first line of defense. And I just don't buy it. But yeah, there's some people that do. Okay. Putting that aside, the other people that don't have a hormonal problem, that can't stop eating, that are trying to fill a void with food, that's addiction.
Right.
We don't turn around and label addiction as a positive thing. We don't go, great, I hope you kill yourself sooner. I hope you die of heart disease and that your body just explodes one day. And yet there's this sort of energy and group that's come out and said, no, you can never say that. But I would tell a drug addict, you got to get off drugs. I would tell an alcoholic, you got to stop drinking alcohol. And I would tell a person who's obese, you're putting too much food in your body and you're going to kill yourself.
Right. Addiction is addiction.
Addiction is addiction.
Right.
And so we have to stand up for what's good in kindness, not in hatred.
Yeah.
I will stand beside anyone who wants to change for the better and support them 100% and give them all the support that I can muster around me. And I will not spread hatred towards that person for whoever they are. But you can't lead someone in light, in kindness, if you can't bring light to that aspect of yourself, which, going back to the warrior, is the first battle. Where is it that you're holding the darkness, the negativity within that you won't let go of? Where's the hatred? Because remember, hatred is poison, and poison is the only thing that kills the vessel that holds it. And so hatred kills you. It doesn't kill the other person. It kills you. It ends up ending your light. And in some cases, ultimately, your physical life will end due to what it brings onto you.
Especially in the case of addictions. I mean, we got this big problem right now. I see this a lot in spiritual communities of people being addicted to things that are very subtle. Like their ego is almost like the ego has gotten more and more subtle, especially amongst people who are pursuing a spiritual path over the last 20 years. And the more like sort of just like a lot of self-deception around what is the light even. And if I'm doing something that is, maybe I would have called it an addiction 20 years ago, but now I call it like plant medicine, or now I call it, meditating 3 hours a day and ignoring paying my bills.
Yep.
It's of the light because it's bringing me insights about who I am as a spiritual being. So isn't that light? Isn't that positive? And who are you, Ipsissimus Dave or Jordan Bain or anyone in the mystery school to tell me otherwise that, I can't have my addiction? And then, developing whole movements that are spun around this concept of like, well, these things that actually no one would have thought was positive 20 years ago are now people are writing whole books about how they're so great.
Yes. And it's a form of what you might call evil or just plain old bad stuff. It misdirects people into a very negative way. And you're seeing that. And it's always, like I said, it always comes from that first seed of it's going to be good. People are too judgmental towards others. Absolutely 100%. Be happy with the body that you have. Stop. As a Hermetic scientist, I'd have to ask you, is that a correct thought that you just had? Be happy with the body you have. Well, if I know I'm 60 pounds overweight and I'm the guy and I got the big gut, if I'm genuinely happy, God bless you. I'm not getting in your way. But if you know that you can do better with yourself, and it's because you don't want to apply yourself to improving, then you need to kick your own ass. That's the warrior needs to come out and lay some laws down on yourself. Where is your inner drill sergeant, right? And if you don't have an inner drill sergeant, then you go outside and you say, I have a place that I know I need this role in my life, and I can't bring it unto myself. So can you do that for me? And you find someone who can fill that role for you, who will be that inner drill sergeant and hold you to it, and hopefully train you, if they're doing a good job, to know how to be your own provider of good things. That's ultimately what you want. But turning around and just saying that you live your life perfectly well, that everything's perfect, that you have everything in alignment, you understand it all. Nobody. In fact, the wiser a person gets, the less they understand. So, and through that lack of understanding, the more they know, the less you know, you actually allow less judgment to be there, because you begin to look and say, well, I don't know. And that's a huge thing for a warrior to put in front of them. When someone says, what should I do? And you say, well, I don't know. What do you think you should do? It's not about you knowing the right answer for another. It's about them knowing the right answer for themselves. But we can look, so that's for the self. But what do you see in the world today in terms of Western culture? You see some very extreme shakeups, and some are good. It's, there's nothing wrong with having to look in the mirror every once in a while and say, hey, are we doing this right? Could we do better? Of course you can do better. So you should do better. And maybe the world needs a really hard shaking to do better. But at some point you have to embrace the good and start to act upon it and start farming that light, farming that positivity and not negativity. Yeah. So, for example, let's talk about, and I know you're just going to love me for bringing things like this up, but let's talk about racism. So racism is, I find it funny when people seem to point out that racism exists, and you kind of scratch your head as an Ipsissimist and say, yeah, water's wet. We need air to breathe. Sky is blue, and racism exists. Should we do something about it? As much as we can do about it, 100%, all the time. Should, for example, you're in Boston. Should America do a better job addressing racism? Yep, absolutely agree with that. Every country should, by the way.
Exactly.
Every human being should, period, no matter who you are. Stop. When's the last time people brought up en masse the radically good things that the U.S. has done to move away from racism? Is it perfect? No, but we've already declared that the micro and the macro are the same. No human is perfect. No country is perfect. But what happened to the last 150 years in the United States, or 200 years? What's happened? The whole world has dramatically, at least in Western countries, I'm not going to speak for Eastern because there's all different dynamics, but has made really, really big improvements. And so, when you're looking out there and you're looking at the world and you're saying it's all doom and gloom, it's all terrible, it's all horrible, you go, wait a minute. A lot of good has been done by people on this planet for the last few hundred years, at least. And so there is hope, because good people will do good things. It is our nature, and I know it's really hard to see today, to be good. We want to be good. We just often express a misalignment with what good is. And so you can always gut check yourself. If I'm being good, am I spreading hatred or love? If I'm being good, am I throwing a brick at someone, or am I trying to offer them a hug, from 6 feet away?
Tribes. I studied anthropology in college, right? I studied cultural anthropology and I studied a lot of, I was studying indigenous religious practices from all over the world for my thesis. And, tribes all over the world for thousands of years who lived 5 miles apart have slaughtered each other because someone was slightly different language group, different dialect, slightly different ancestor gods or goddesses. So, people are like, well, the racism is really bad right now. I'm like, let's look back 300 years. Let's look back 300 years and people killed each other because, they had a slightly different intonation in their speech all the time. And there was no accountability and there was no police to stop that. And, there was no kind of regulation, just when people would slaughter each other for the littlest things. So, definitely there's been improvements in that. And sometimes it's the ignorance of just our own recent history for people not to be able to see these things.
Well, just remember that biology, nature is based on a structure that you would call in human terms racism. Go take a black ant and throw it in with the red ants. Go take a red ant and throw it in with the black ants. They'll kill each other in seconds. Take bees from other hives, and often they end up killing each other. There's so many examples where biology is a negative towards fair-mindedness. So rather than ignoring that, you say, okay, there's a foundation we have to work with. What can we do to make that better?
Yeah.
And one of the things that, one of the problems you have today with standing up for anything, being a warrior for good things, is you stand up and you actually end up perpetrating the very thing you're trying to stop. You make it worse. You make it much worse. Whenever you're looking at, and people aren't going to like this, but again, I'm not here to be loved. I'm just here to try and lay some truth down. Whenever you look at large and small groups of people, so you have a minority and a majority. If the minority demands something a lot, it requires the acquiescence of the majority to accept said demands because they outnumber them and generally will be more powerful. What happens to any group on planet Earth if the minority demands more than the majority is willing to give? I'm not talking about a wrong or right. I'm talking about what's going to happen. You get pushback. And that pushback, when the majority pushes back, their power is much more extreme because there's more of them. So you'll have a bigger pushback and a bigger result as the pendulum swings the other way. So, so even if your desire is to change something in the world, you've got to be intelligent. You've got to know how far to hit the gas pedal and when to take your foot off the gas, so that you don't evoke that response that you don't want. Because just remember, think about it this way. I mean, one of the questions ritual masters, you've heard me say as a ritual master, I've asked you all this many times. If the whole world acted like you today, would the world be better or worse for it? So if what you're doing is screaming and shouting and banging your fists, if the whole world did that, if the majority responded the way you're responding, what would happen? Chaos, anarchy, despotism. So not saying that if people are doing wrong or right, but you have to be a little intelligent. And I just saw a little flash up there about accountability, and that is extremely missing in this world. That responsibility for your own actions and your own thoughts and your own words, that is the number one tenet of having power in this world. So if you don't mind, let's talk about power a little bit.
Absolutely.
Who doesn't want power? Right? I'm a rich, middle-aged white guy. I apparently have all the power on the planet. I've tried to do, look, I'm going to pot of gold. Didn't happen. Change the world. Still didn't happen. I think you've assigned far too much power to me. Power comes only in one way, guys, for everyone. It comes with responsibility. If you want power in the world, if you want to create change, then you have to be responsible in some way, shape, or form for the results of the change. If you don't have responsibility, you won't have power. So in other words, a simple one. You want to say, stop all the starving children in the world. You want children to have food all over the world. The only way that you'd have any power to do something about that is you'd have to get involved and have a level of responsibility towards it. Maybe you're working with a charity or you're helping do fundraisers or whatever, but you'd have to have a level of responsibility. You can't just stand on the outside and say, gee, I hope those kids get food one day and somehow it's going to happen. It doesn't work that way. So responsibility has to be in its place. But with responsibility, you have to go back to that internal warrior, because we know absolute power corrupts absolutely. So how do you stop that from happening? Well, checks and balances on the outside, but internally one has to be constantly willing to ask themselves if what they're doing is right if they're making things better for others, for themselves. And if that is true, then there are definitive fruits of that good. And if you don't have fruits, let me give you another example. We have people that, for example, have a lot of new age people I've seen that want to teach about wealth, how to be wealthy, and they'll call it abundance. And they'll say, well, I just want an abundant life. And it never means 100% money. And I always find that a bit foolish, because money makes the world go round. And if you want influence in the world, the more money you have, the more influence you have. That is just part of how the world works. Mm-hmm. But these teachers can't produce money. They don't know how to. So they just say abundance so they can teach you some sort of spiritual mumbo jumbo about abundance. And abundance is great. Have great friends, live a good life, have joy, a wonderful family, mm-hmm. and have money. There's no reason you can't have all of those things and not have money. And then what does money do? Money makes the world a better place if you're a good person. It makes the world a worse place if you're a bad person. Because money allows you, when people say, what is money? Energetically, it allows you to have your internal expression externalized. That's all. The more money you have, the more you can express what you feel inside about the world outwardly. Mm-hmm. So you'll have, if you like cars, you'll have cars. If you like art, you'll have art. If you like clothes, you'll have clothes. If you like to help charities, you'll help charities, because you have the means to do it. And to me, I wish all of these wonderfully good people with good hearts were millionaires and or billionaires, so that we could make some more significant change. Mm-hmm. But you'd have to do it differently than what people do it today. And mm-hmm. it would have to come from a place of not trying to tear down things, but to make things better. I think it's Goodney who said, who quotes Buckminster Fuller, and says that, you don't get rid of the system, I'm paraphrasing, by destroying it. You build one that is better than the last one, and the old system becomes obsolete. And that's missing in all of this stuff. It's mm-hmm. You gotta tell me, if you want me on your side of life, you gotta tell me how what you're gonna do is gonna be better than what's already there. Because I understand what's already there isn't perfect. It's in some cases terrible. But what's already there is serving some purpose. It's doing something. It's allowing us to exist. It may not allow us to exist in the way we want, but at least we're surviving, and we're still here after, 150,000 years. Human beings are still kind of moving along, several million if we go back in other parts of history. So just because a system is there doesn't mean that removing it will make the world better. Often removing it, even if it's not a great system. We talk about the police, for example, today. And, could the police do better? Yes. But, when people say that, it's like everybody can do better, folks. Everybody. You can do better, too. Every person who looks in a mirror can do better. So does the police system have to change? Yeah. But I'd rather have police than no police, because guess what's going to fill that vacuum? It ain't going to be good people. It's going to be bad people. Real bad people are going to fill that vacuum real fast, because they're already organized and ready to take over. So for now, the police need to do better. Yes. But it's the best system that we have. So right. Then, like everything, we work on perfecting that system. We don't just throw it away. Modern medicine has to do better. So should we throw away all antibiotics today?
Nope.
No, because in a few years, you'd lose about 1 billion people on the planet due to very minor infections. They'd be dead. So you have to kind of gauge what it is you're attacking, and have a little wisdom on how far you want to take this.
Yeah.
Perfection is part of the warrior's role, but that perfection is inside the self first.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that? Well, I'd love to hear you talk about maybe like what's the biggest pitfall that you see on the path of the warrior? And this could be within the school, or this could be just your observations about humans in general, as people are trying to move forward, to know themselves, to, to basically paraphrase what you said earlier, to like kick their ego's ass. When people are trying to do that, whether they are mystery school initiates, ritual masters or not, what do you see like the biggest pitfall being for people?
there's a few different places. It's different on where you are. When you're starting out, it's chasing the good feeling. So there's this concept, especially in New Age, that if it doesn't make you feel good, it's bad for you. And hermetically, that's just kind of stupid, because your ego is going to fight you, and that's going to be an unpleasant experience at times. Right. You're going to have to deal with some very unpleasant self-realizations, and you're not going to feel great about those realizations. But it's in those moments that you get clarity that you can then make a decision to do better. So at the beginning, the first real pitfall is, oh my God, I start to feel good, and therefore I'm great now, so I'm okay because I feel good. So I have this concept, I call it pancakes. If you like pancakes, and I make you really, because I'm the best pancake maker in the world, bar none, peach pancakes, blueberry what pancake do you want? Boom. You want some buckwheat? You want some milk? What do you want? Pancakes are the best. Peach, my favorite, but you want pancakes? I'll make you pancakes. And you'll love those pancakes. They'll taste great, right? And they're probably full of gluten, so you'll stick together more. You won't fall apart because gluten holds you together.
Integration.
I'm pretty sure that's right, but I don't know. I'm not a health guy. But you'll have pancakes. You'll feel good, and it won't change anything in the world. There's nothing wrong with pancakes, So there's nothing wrong with feeling good. Feel good, but then there's kind of like it's time to get down to business. So at the beginning, we feel really good. We feel inspired. We feel change. But as we go into our next step, it's about getting down to business. And getting down to business isn't normally a pleasant experience. But as I say to so many people, just because something is hard doesn't mean it's not worth it. In fact, again, New Age movement, if it was meant to be, it was meant to be. That's such a load of horseshit. Oh, excuse me. Was I swearing? I didn't mean to. If that pushed your buttons, internalize it, be a warrior, and deal with your bullshit. So, did I swear again?
I'll get over my trigger later. And I'll
get over your triggers. Work on it. It's like, oh my God, words. Sticks and stones may break my bones.
Trigger alert on the screen. Warning, Ipsissimus Dave will trigger you.
It will trigger you. So, okay. See, you're gonna have some rough bumps. And sometimes people give up. That's the second point. They go, look, I can't handle the roughness. I can't handle this. I can't handle realizing, for the most part, and I'll teach this in our arm class, you're going to wake up one day and realize that you're pretty much an idiot and a jerk, men and women. And that's not a pleasant thing to think about, because you're like, well, shouldn't you make me feel better? No, you should make you feel better. That's the entire point, not me. I'm just going to give you tools to build a house. You build whatever house you want. I'm not here to build your house for you. So the second pitfall is that it doesn't feel good. So the first one is it feels great. The second one is I don't like it. It doesn't feel good. And then you ultimately have to ask yourself, are you worth it? Are you worth the change? And for me, I woke up one day and I looked in the mirror and I said, I'm fed up of me. I had, in all intents and purposes, mastered the three-dimensional life. I had money, I had a career, I had authority, I had power, I had physical success as a martial artist. I was in fantastic shape. I had everything that a person would want. I lived really well. And yet I was sick of me, because to do that, I had to compromise who I was multiple times. And one day you say, I can't keep this mask on and be true to myself. And when you throw that mask away, man, it can be like a nuclear bomb in your life. But yeah, as it says there, you have to be worth the change to do this. So you have to be able to look at yourself and say, but damn it, I'm worth it. And I'm going to push through this to get to the other side. And when you do, you go into the third phase, and that third phase is you'll never look back. You'll become a light addict, if there is such a thing, and you'll be like, no, I love this, but you won't be a flake, because you'll understand what hardship is. You'll understand what struggle is. And when someone comes to you and says, I don't understand and I'm struggling, you're going to say, yeah, I've been there before. I know what that's like. I hear you. I know it's hard. Have you thought about this? Have you considered that? And you won't be a judgmental person, not in the same way. So you should be able to, in clarity of the self, be able to look at a person and say, you're acting like an idiot right now, and yet hold no negativity towards that person whatsoever. Only hold kindness in your heart. If you can't do that, if the only way you can express to someone that they need to do better is through some emotional attachment of negativity, then you have failed already. You should be able to say to someone with all love in your heart and absolutely no angst towards them where they need to improve, because you should have been able to say it to yourself first long ago.
For sure. So we've only got a few minutes left here, and we've got a couple of questions that we talked about earlier.
Sure.
And we've kind of addressed some of them here already. What have been your own personal strongest lessons around being a warrior, Ipsissimus Dave?
Oh, wow.
You want me to ask a different one? We can.
No, I mean, there's always, you're never so perfect that you're perfect. There's always improvement that must be there. Always be willing to be wrong. You'll hear me say often, Ipsissimus Dave is always right. And sometimes that ruffles people's feathers, or they laugh at me and they think it's a joke, but I generally am right. And the reason being is because I'm always willing to be wrong. That's why. I'm willing to make mistakes so you can learn. Be willing to step off the cliff and go, gee, I don't have wings. Oops, I'm going to fall. And ultimately, the second thing is try to do your best to not come from a place of emotion towards anyone else other than the people who are your direct family, or or immediately close friends. And even then, I would say the closest of close being your immediate spouse or partner, whoever. Try not to have emotions in those other things. That doesn't mean that you don't have feelings, that you care for others and you have compassion. Those are all feelings, not emotions. But when you have triggers, there's nothing I should be able to say to you, except maybe as a teacher, to bother you. And nobody on the street should be able to say anything that bothers you. If you're on the street and you say, you're a son of a bitch, who the hell does that person know you? Why would their judgment matter to you?
Right.
So, and if it does, you need to look at something inside yourself. So I've learned over the years to work on those three things all the time and just be like, it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say lies ahead for warriors who are training at this time in history? Because we live in such an uncertain time. Like what are we looking at in the next 10 to 20 years on the planet? And what are the most important tools and insights we can have as warriors going forward from here?
That's a big one. And it really comes down to our most important thing that you would learn, for example, as a ritual master. And you have to learn discernment. You have to, because what's happening in the world today is so many people are trying to tell you that they're talking about deep waters and it's just 1 inch of mud. But you go, wow, it must be deep. It looks really deep, and there's just no depth in it. So much is propaganda today. Social media is, I don't know why anyone, for example, in the world would be on Twitter and believe that what they're hearing is real from anybody, unless you know that person personally. But Twitter is just a vacuum of absurdity. It is 100% provenly clear that our big media corporations they've always been biased. Silly to say that news was never biased, but it's extreme now. It's ultra extreme now. It's gone to the nth degree. And the only way as a warrior you're going to navigate these waters is through discernment, and not just nodding your head when CNN says something, or when Fox News goes, and you go, okay, and Twitter said something, oh yeah, Disney said something, you go, yep, whatever they say, and Nike said, and you nod your head and say whatever. Oh, did you hear? You got to stop and be wiser than that. It's about knowing if this is true, what does this mean? And it's almost always about offering hatred towards something. And so don't take that bait. And so it's going to be hard, because all of those hooks, if we want to talk it in a Christian term, Satan's going to be offering you apples everywhere in the next 20 years. Want an apple? Want an apple? Every street corner is going to have some guy trying to offer you the apple. Bite the apple, learn the dark side. And it's going to really be up to you to say,
Yeah.
I'm not biting of that. And you might say, okay, well, how do I know that? How do I sort of protect myself from such things? If you're being offered to dislike or hate another human being, no matter who they are, if you're being offered to despise someone else's existence, then you've taken the fruit and you got to spit it back out.
Yeah.
We will only make the world a better place if we do things that are better than the world is today. And so we don't have kindness. We don't have compassion. We have burning cars and anger and things being thrown. And I get it. COVID has made a mess of things. It made it even worse. It's amplified it. But what are you going to do? You want to preside over the world as it crashes, or do you want to be one of the people that stands in the front and says, no, let's not crash it. Let's actually do better, guys. For us, and for like I'm a father. Let's do it for our children. Let's make the world a better place. I want to leave it better than it was, not worse. And right now, I was born into a better world than it is today. And that's kind of sad, because I don't think there's too many generations that could have said that. And definitely the generation before me would have said, we were born and were involved in World War II. You were born in a more peaceful, better world. Wow. My son was not born in a more peaceful, better world. He was born in a much more difficult world today. Yeah. And who owns that responsibility? We do. All of us. Every one of us owns it, because we're not willing to put enough love towards ourselves first and others. We'd rather go into the hatred hole and the anger hole. So next time when you tweet something on Twitter, just remember, everything you're doing is just adding more fuel to the fire, both for the positive or the negative.
Yeah. Amazing. And thank you, Ipsissimus Dave. We're at the end of our time here, and I super appreciate you taking time out of your schedule. I know how busy you are and how you're administering all this stuff with the ministry school all over the world. So really appreciate it. And I hope everyone who watched this tonight, you really enjoyed. Those who are watching in the future as well. Hopefully we left you with some things that maybe triggered you, and maybe some things that resonated with you. So hope you all.
If I was inappropriate from the bottom of my heart, and I mean this, I don't care. You need to look at yourself if I pushed your buttons, and I'm happy to do it again. Awesome. I really, who am I? Just look at yourself if your buttons are pushed.
Amazing.
Cool. Thank you, brother.
So much, Dave.
Appreciate it.
Have a wonderful night, everyone.